smell.
The Big Red Machine is here. Woo! Get stealing, woo! Wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun.
From the past.
I am a real American.
To the present. And the future.
I send it you to deletion!
You are listening to Penn State's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus, Ryan Simpson, and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marcus. Alongside me, Ryan Simpson and Matt Freiler. The crew is all here back together once again, and it could not have come at a better time because, man, do we have some headlines for you in the world of professional wrestling. No other way to start this show than by first saying our thoughts and prayers are with Roman Reigns as he announced this past week on Monday Night Raw that he will be relinquishing the WWE Universal Championship in order to fight a return of leukemia. Absolutely out of left field. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody even knew that he was in remission. But apparently after 11 years, it has come back, and he is out for the foreseeable future. First, Ryan, Matt, thanks for being here. But tell me, you guys, what was your initial reaction to this opening segment of Monday Night Raw?
I mean, I was speechless. It's just a very shocking thing because we all get caught up in kayfabe and these storylines and the creative world that is professional wrestling. And I think we sometimes forget that these guys are humans. And as much as we might boo the character Roman Reigns, to see Joe, the human, come out there and just tell the world that he has leukemia and use the outlet of professional wrestling to do that was to me just shocking. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it. He's such an athletic guy, and for it to happen to him and for him to be living with it and to have it go into remission and then come back, it's that crowd said it all. I mean, they were speechless. And we have to keep in mind that, you know, he will be back strong one day because Roman Reigns is a warrior. He's fought it in 2009 or 2008 when he first had it, and actually he told us that back then he really didn't even have a place to live. He wasn't really, big in the wrestling business yet, and he fought it while he was able to stay active in wrestling. So now, with the situation that he's in, to take time off is a great idea, but I know that Roman Reigns will beat this, and he'll be back soon enough, and we wish him the best.
Yeah, I think my reaction was similar to your guys'. I was very much in shock, and I was talking to my dad about it, and I think the part that surprises me the most is that no one knew about it. The fact that it had been 11 years of him having leukemia and not a single soul knew about it is just absolutely shocking, because with how social media is today, we get news instantly, and that's just the world we live in. So the fact that he hid this for 11 years and not a single soul knew about it, and we had that moment of him in the ring with the microphone, not in the vest, in street clothes, telling the entire world about this, was just one of those moments that you won't forget. I mean, I think it's on par with Daniel Bryan's retirement speech. I think it's on par with Ric Flair's retirement speech, just as a matter of you don't see moments like this in professional wrestling where you strip back the character, you strip back all of the glitz and glam of the business, and you get to see the person, like Matt said. He came out and said, "My name's Joe. This is the reality of it. I have leukemia." And just like I said, that's one of those instances where everything is stripped away and you're looking at a human being in the ring fighting for his life. And I think sometimes we do get caught up in everything that goes on in professional wrestling, and we forget that these guys are human. We forget the travel schedules. We forget all the time away from home, all of the preparation, all of the travel, and it's just very, very difficult to see somebody who works as hard as he does have potentially his first big title run taken away from him by something like this.
Yeah, I mean, it is a real shame, and I'm going to disagree with you in the fact that I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. There certainly have been emotional moments in the ring with, like, Edge and Daniel Bryan and Paige retiring, but we've never had to see someone really, like, strip back the curtain as much as this. Like, Daniel Bryan in his retirement speech did not go, "I'm Bryan Danielson," and, like, you know, there was no, "I'm Adam Copeland," and this isn't even an injury. This isn't a result of professional wrestling. This is just horrible circumstances where the guy is at the absolute top of his game. He's the top guy in the entire company, and for the first time in 6 years, and I don't think anyone ever saw this coming, we now have to imagine the WWE for the foreseeable future without a Roman Reigns, which is insane for anyone who's followed the product for the past 6 years, because how do you fill the shoes of the guy who's literally been the top guy for 6 years? Like, it's insane to me. One thing I also want to talk about is you mentioned, Ryan, that no one knew about this. Was that confirmed? Because I know, Matt, we had talked about, you had thought that potentially Vince had known all along, and maybe that was a factor into why he was so in favor of Roman. So, do we know for a fact that nobody knew that he was had cancer 11 years ago? Or
yeah, I'm not going to speculate, but part of me wanted to they canceled him being on the last, I think, week of house shows, and he wasn't performing, so the rumor was that he was hurt. And part of me, I mean, yeah, Vince knows everything almost, and part of me thought, okay, here's a guy who came into the business, somebody was aware that he had beaten leukemia, and that just added to his story and made him this warrior that if this guy is willing to wrestle through leukemia, he's going to be a star in this business. And I feel like somebody back then, when he was getting into wrestling, may have known that he beat it and it went into remission. And that just added to his courage and his perseverance as a character, really, not giving up and being able to wrestle through it. But, man, just the amount of courage that it takes to go out there and cut that promo and go in that ring and not a promo, excuse me, just to go out there and open the show the way he did. I mean, the amount of pressure that his character has been under as a wrestler, just to begin with not being approved by the crowd when they're trying to, you know, make him the face of the company, and the WWE Universe rejecting him, and the amount of pressure that it takes to go out there, because you know there's going to be people anyway who call this a work, and it's just ridiculous. But that's just what you get out of wrestling fans, and I've seen it on Twitter. People think there are people out there who think this is a work and that, you know, he'll come back and blah blah blah. But, you know, I do think that at some point somebody probably knew that and it just added to his kind of perseverance as a character, I guess you'd say.
Where do you fall on this, Ryan? Do you think that this was completely under wraps for the past 10 years, or do you think somebody in the business knew that this was happening?
I think the only person that could have known was Vince, because obviously with the extent of, like, medical tests that superstars go through now when they go into the business is just so detailed. So I'm sure it was brought up, but I guess going back to my original statement that nobody knew, I think I need to clear that up and say I'm surprised that through that week of Roman being injured, nothing else was said.
Right.
Like, it wasn't Roman's arms hurt, or Roman's chest hurts, or he has a concussion. It was, Roman's hurt. And for that entire week where he got pulled off house shows, nobody knew the extent of the injury. So I guess that's what I meant by nobody knew. Like, there wasn't some dirt sheet report that was like, ooh, Roman has a groundbreaking announcement tonight on Raw. It was just breathtaking, like, in a sense, where there's a part of you that thinks, okay, well, he's going to come out and say, I have to go get surgery.
But it wasn't that,
Yeah, it wasn't that at all. And I guess the last thing that I really have to say on Roman would be the amount of support that he has gotten from all over sports.
Yeah.
I mean, this was not just an outpouring from other superstars and other wrestlers across the world, but it was Madison Square Garden putting up their marquee saying, "Get well, Roman." It was other athletes who have met Roman at shows saying, "Hey, this dude is incredible. He is a great guy. He's going to beat this thing." And I think that somehow should go as an argument against the pro wrestling is not a sport conversation. Because if you have superstars from all other sports reaching out to a guy in a quote-unquote fake sport and saying, "Hey, this guy puts on a show. He is absolutely an athlete, and he's going to beat this thing because that's who he is," I think that should show people that what they do in the ring, yes, is choreographed, yes, is scripted, but the amount of pressure, the amount of wear that it puts on you as a human being is real, like other athletes are. So I wish Roman all the best. He will beat this thing again. He's done it once. He'll do it again. That's who Roman Reigns is. But it's going to be very interesting going forward on Monday Night Raw and in all of WWE without Roman.
Yeah, I think this is like such a big time for reflecting on the career up to this point of Roman Reigns. And with this announcement, it really has just kind of like made me think that like this guy is put up with so much, both personally and professionally. And from all accounts of anything I've ever read about Roman Reigns is that he is the nicest guy and the best leader that you could have in that locker room. And to think that every night, and including up this past Monday Night Raw, he's had to go out there and face the reaction that he has from the WWE Universe just absolutely pretty much hating him. It's almost like you almost feel embarrassed. Like, this past Monday Night Raw, the guy knew he was going to go out there and tell the entire world that his life, he was fighting for his life, and he knew he was going to go out there and everyone was just going to boo him. And that's something that I couldn't even comprehend. And it just shows that Roman Reigns, the character, may have been portrayed as a superhero, but the real superhero here is Joe Anoa'i. Obviously, we wish him a speedy recovery and hope he'll come back here. But just absolutely heartbreaking stuff from Roman Reigns.
Yeah, and to anyone who says, this was part of the show and this was Vince finding out and saying, okay, this is how we're going to announce it, I disagree. I think that it was Roman's decision because wrestling is his world and it is his life, and he's so committed to the business that I think he thought, this is the best way for me to handle this, instead of announcing it in different means. And I think that once management heard that, they were okay with it. And I think for the people who want to criticize how the message was delivered, I think it was right. And we'll get to how the show ended later on, which you can have a mixed opinion on that. But if you just take that opening segment, I think because Joe, we'll call him in this situation, said, I don't want any sympathy from you guys about this. I don't want you to pity me. I think that he was prepared for people who may have been thinking this was a work, and he wanted to make sure that when he delivered the message he was delivering, that it was genuine, and it was. It wasn't a wrestling promo. You could see it in his face. And he walks off the stage. You could see it in Dean's and Seth's face. This was not kayfabe.
Right.
So it boggles my mind. And Twitter will always be just a free-for-all and a place where anonymous people will have any opinion that they please. But for the people out there who really think that this was a WWE attempt to the only way that they can maybe get him face and make this a wrestling thing, it's just ridiculous. Stop. Think about Roman and Joe and his family and what this means, and take a break from the wrestling world and just think about this as a human, and that's what I would ask a lot of people to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that this is not a work. This is real life situation here. At the same time, though, like, I mean, I do somewhat understand the perspective of, because the WWE and professional wrestling always blur the lines of what's real and what's not. I mean, we've had Vince McMahon fake his own death multiple times. I don't think they'll ever go to this lengths, and I think that's why it's obvious to anyone with common sense that this is not, especially during October, where they're also on the same show promoting like breast cancer awareness and Connor's cure. Like, they're not going to do any publicity stunt like that. But I mean, listen, as obvious that this is not a work, but I do get the sentiment of why people may have originally thought that it could have been. But if you look at it for any more than 30 seconds, you realize that this is not something that even the WWE is willing to stoop to.
No, yeah, I completely agree. There have been so many instances in the past where we don't know what is real and what is scripted, but you could just sense it in the crowd, too.
Yeah.
You could sense it just overall as an entire atmosphere. Roman walking out in street clothes. Nobody else getting in the ring with him. Him standing in there, just completely blank stare almost. Like, just no emotion, because I'm sure on the inside the guy was just tore up, like you were saying, Jason. The fact that he's gone out here for the better half of 3 years and been booed out of every building pretty much he has ever stepped foot in has to be just mentally incredible for the guy. I mean, the fact that he went out there and gave the promo that he, or not the promo, but gave the speech that he did, you could sense it in the fans. I mean, rarely do we see WWE cameras cut to fans anymore. It's only in these very, very wholesome, heartfelt moments that we get the interaction of a fan on a camera. And we were cutting to fans and just looks of shock and tears and just overall uncertainty on so many fans' faces that you know from the jump that this was not a work.
I think it's interesting, too, that, like, obviously you're talking about it visually, but even if you just, like, didn't watch the tape, if you just listen to it, it starts off and they're just booing him. And then he reveals that it's Joe Hawaii, and they're like, oh, this is odd. Do we keep booing him? But they're still kind of doing it. And then he drops leukemia, and then it's like, oh, the crowd just goes silent. And then, then they start cheering him like he's the biggest baby face in the world. And like that, at that point, they realize that, oh, this is no longer, a scripted thing. This is real life taking place. So I thought that was fascinating and also telling of how the WWE Universe, for as opinionated as they are, I think it's awesome to see that they will rally behind anyone and understand that they really are putting their bodies on the lines for our own entertainment week in and week out. And whether or not they're a fan of the character of Roman Reigns or whoever it might be in that spot, it's good to know that they actually understand the business enough to know that this is no longer a matter of we don't want him being pushed, we want him alive.
And I can't stress enough, think about like what you just said, Jason, how tough of a crowd that is.
Yeah.
I mean, there are right places and right times for professional athletes to announce to a crowd that they have something going on and be okay. WWE is the toughest crowd that you could ever do that in front of because of what type of person that a wrestling fan is. If you're a wrestling fan, you're invested in this stuff. You love the storylines, you love kayfabe, and you're fascinated with some of the stuff that we've had in the 90s where Vince McMahon fakes his death or these crazy storylines happen and they really push the envelope. But, when you hear this, you kind of peel back and you're like, okay, I don't want to be that person that is so invested in this business that I would think that this is an angle. So let's just be humans first and then wrestling fans second.
All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we still have a lot to talk about here. Of course, the ending to Monday Night Raw was also as controversial as potentially the beginning of it. We also got Evolution this Sunday, so we got to give our official predictions and run down this card. Also, we got a lot going on in SmackDown, 205 Live, Mae Young Classic, NXT UK, a lot of professional wrestling, but we certainly wanted to give this matter its proper due. So, again, before we go to break, wishes, prayers, and thoughts to Roman Reigns and his speedy recovery. Big Dog, we will see you soon, and we will be right back. You're listening to Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast, and we will be right back.
Now back to Com Radio's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marcus. Alongside me, Matt Freiler and Ryan Simpson. And it was an absolutely emotional night, a Monday Night Raw full of highs and full of lows. A lot of lows, though, unfortunately. But other than the big Roman Reigns story to start off the show, we also had a bunch of other stories continue throughout. And, of course, the ending of Monday Night Raw saw the Raw Tag Team Championship match between the champions Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler defending the titles against Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, the Shield here. It was a really good match, but in the end, we saw Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose win the Raw Tag Team Championship once again. But unfortunately, them winning the titles was not the big story at the end of the show. Matt, let's go to you. Talk to us about what you were thinking as you were watching the end of this Monday Night Raw unfold.
Well, I only caught the last couple minutes of Raw live. I turned it on because I knew that there was going to be a big Shield coronation. Obviously, they were going to win the tag belts, and the crowd was just going to be wild. This was going to be an amazing moment. And then that wrestling fan in the back of my head said, they can't possibly do this, can they? This is, and when you saw Dean and Seth in there, you're thinking, this is too long. Like, they're not cutting the show. You don't see the credits in the right corner. What is going on? Like, they're not going to do this, are they? And they do it. And I think this was an audible by Vince McMahon. I think that he called an audible here. I don't think that this necessarily was the plan going in, but I think he realized it was the right time. And I think that before their match, Dean Ambrose was asked to turn tonight because I don't think it was the original plan.
What do you mean, like for him to turn or just turn on this episode?
I think that it was planned for him to turn on a pay-per-view.
Okay.
So I don't think that. I think Vince saw this moment, saw how emotional the crowd was, and thought, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it now. And I think that they did it at the right time. It was as perfect as a heel turn as you could ever orchestrate because it was natural. You didn't have to pretend to hate Dean Ambrose. You actually hated him. You were like, this guy's a creep. Like, this was a dirty move. Like, Seth just found out that his best friend has cancer, and he goes and does this. Like, you didn't have to pretend to hate him like you do some heels.
Right.
And it's like, you, like, as he's walking up through the crowd, that's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to understand, like, some of these wrestling fans are very passionate. And I don't know if you guys heard, they're cutting all the audio. I mean, the things that are coming out of people's mouths directed at Dean Ambrose and that crowd, I mean, chunks of audio are being cut from the show because they just can't go over air what people are saying. And then they send him through the crowd. Let me tell you what, Dean Ambrose is a very courageous guy because I would not want to walk through that crowd after having to turn heel that way. So, but I do. I think it was a perfect time to do it. I think Dean will be a massive heel, got nuclear heat from that crowd. And this episode of Raw blew my mind. And if you had a ticket and you're just going to an episode of Raw, you're like, oh, it's going to be a good time. You know, I'm going to have some fun, see some great matches. And then you see the top guy in the company say he's dropping the belt because he has leukemia. And then his Shield mate turns on Seth Rollins. It's like, what do you do? Like, you're walking to the parking lot and you're just thinking to yourself, what did I just see? Like, this is insane.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who weren't clear here, obviously Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns, communitively known as the Shield, one of the greatest factions in WWE history. Obviously, Roman makes that announcement at the end of the show, and then Dean beats up Seth Rollins at the end of the show. I think officially making Seth Rollins the biggest babyface in the company. I don't know. Is there any competition there? What do you think, Ryan?
I don't think so. And I think moving forward, like Matt said, Dean got absolutely nuke heat walking through that crowd. I mean, the last guy that I can foreseeably remember walking through the crowd was CM Punk, and he ended up punching a fan. But I think what Matt was saying about it being the right time was definitely a good call because back to the mystique and the magic of pro wrestling, we can go from the 8 o'clock spot of a human being saying that he's going to go fight a disease to the 11 o'clock spot where his two best friends are in the ring, one beats the other one up, and everybody just boos the crap out of him.
Yeah.
And that's just the magic of what we watch and why we are pro wrestling fans, because we do get caught up in it to think, oh, man, we're going to have this great coronation. They're going to win the belt to Roman. They're going to be like the protectors of the belt while he comes back, and it's going to be great. And then you see Dean start beating the crap out of Seth. And the one camera angle I watched, you can hear Seth asking Dean while he's getting punched, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? What are you doing to me? And I think that only adds to the shock factor when you go back and rewatch it, and when we go back and rewatch this 10 years from now, to this entire episode. But as Seth being the biggest babyface, I think that's going to be hands down. He's the guy now until
Yeah, I agree.
until Roman gets back. I think Dean is also going to be the absolute heel until somebody else steps up, because we were talking during the break, and Braun's now a babyface. Again, because we have Drew who beat Braun up, and Drew's going to be the heel, and Braun's going to be the face. But the fact of the matter is, Seth has the look that Braun does not. Vince is going to run with Seth because he's the stereotypical babyface good guy.
I mean, although I'd argue that Seth is not stereotypical, because stereotypically they really want people who look like Roman Reigns.
You're not wrong, but, I mean, for the run that Seth had with the Money in the Bank and then getting the title, they were running with him for a while until Lesnar ended up taking it back.
I think Seth is Triple H's guy, not Vince's, but Triple H is making the calls right now.
I definitely agree with you on that. I mean, that goes back the whole way to NXT. But I think moving forward is going to be very, very interesting, because I think you have Seth and Dean feud for the IC. Maybe have that go back and forth a couple times. You have Seth win the Universal title somehow. And then you have Seth and Dean for the Universal title too, just to keep this storyline going, because as much as we hate the fact that it's going to happen, they are going to constantly talk about Roman and his disease.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And they're definitely going to put this within the storyline, which they definitely should not, because that is a human being fighting for his life. But that is the fact of professional wrestling. They are going to exploit this.
Yeah, I think, and before we stray too far off of this, down the rabbit hole of what could happen next, did anyone have a problem with the heel turn happening tonight the way that it did? Because I know there's a lot of people on Twitter saying that this was not the night to do it because of the whole Roman Reigns situation, but then some people are saying because of the Roman Reigns situation, this had to be the night that it happened. So, Matt, did you have a problem with the way it happened?
No. And you guys know very well that there's been many times where Vince has sat in his chair, heard that crowd, and called an audible.
Yeah.
And
WrestleMania.
He saw that crowd after that reaction, and he called an audible. This was not there's no way that this was the
So
plan.
you don't even think that going into before the opening segment, you don't think that was the plan for the main event?
No, I think the plan was the Shield coronation. Let's give them their moment, protect the belt, like you said, Ryan. I think Vince saw that crowd, and he was like, this is insane. Like, these people are, like, so torn up right now about this. And I do. I think that he said, all right, let's do it now. Like, let's not wait.
I completely disagree. I think as soon as he knew Roman was going to make that announcement at the beginning of the show, he said has to be the night if we're going to do this, then we're also going to do this. Like, I don't think that was a spur of the moment decision. I think as soon as he knew Roman was going to drop the belt, he said, then we got to find a new baby face, and we got to start putting these storylines in motion, and this is how we're going to do it.
Hate to pick sides here, but I'm on Matt's side for this one, because I can see Vince in his chair watching those monitors saying, I have the crowd right now in the palm of my hand. How can I get the crowd to like one guy and dislike the other guy? Exploit what just happened. You're emotionally invested, and you are so vulnerable in that moment. There's not a more vulnerable time for a wrestling fan than when the character gets stripped away from the human being.
Right.
So to have the people of Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins in the ring, but have the characters over top, and for you to finally pull the trigger on a moment that we had been seeing for weeks on Raw. You saw that Dean didn't feel like he fit in with Seth and with Roman since coming back. And then this is the time you pull it. I think it was absolutely the right decision. Whether it was an audible or not, I think it was going to happen regardless on that Raw.
Yeah, and I would say, just because that's a pay-per-view moment, I think Dean Ambrose turning heel would have been something that we see on a pay-per-view and not on a Monday night.
But I disagree, though, because the original Shield turn was on a Monday Night Raw.
You're correct. But I don't know, I just feel like these seeds have been planted. And I know we talked about Seth a lot, but let's just talk for a little bit about how massive of a heel Dean Ambrose could actually be. For them to go this psychopath route, like turn him into a complete psychopath.
He needs to go the
like
same route as
a total
Ciampa.
nutcase who like came out of like a psych ward. Like Dean Ambrose would be such a good character. Back when he got hurt and he was out for like 9 months, build on that storyline. What happened during his like recovery from that injury? Like what happened to him? Like something clicked. Like build on that storyline. He was gone for so long. No, we don't know what happened. We're all just waiting for Dean to come back, and they need to build on this story because Dean Ambrose could have the peak of his career happen right now.
I 100% believe that his heel run will be the best thing he's done in his entire career up to this point. One thing I'd love to see also from this rivalry going forward is kind of like what you were saying with Matt, of like more backstory about what caused Dean to snap in those 9 months. But also on the flip side, I'd love to see babyface Seth Rollins kind of like break down emotionally and kind of like his internal conflict of like, am I the root cause of all this? Because he was the original one who started all this. Like in a sick kind of way, you can almost justify Dean Ambrose for these actions because Seth did the same thing to him 3 years ago, and he stabbed him in the back. So why all of a sudden now Dean's stabbing Seth in the back? Is it so much worse just because of the day that it happened on? I mean, so that I think that, but that's what makes this feud so great and have so much potential is because there's so complex emotions involved in every single facet of it that this is easily going to be. Now, obviously, we've had our struggles with WWE Creative, but if it's done right, this could be the best story that WWE has ever told.
I agree, and I think, kind of conjoining your two ideas, I think I want to see Dean less on TV wrestling. I want to see Dean doing Shield video camera promos again.
Yeah.
I want to see him in a dark room walking up to a camera, kind of like Bray Wyatt's promos, where he just walks up and says, you know what, while I was gone, I had to watch my supposed best friends, Roman and Seth, take over this company. I had to watch them win belts, and what could I do about it? I had to sit at home and wait and wait and wait. And then you can play into what you were saying, Jason, about the original Shield breakup, and he could say something to the effect of, well, now Roman's not around. And the last time that somebody saw a chance to get ahead, they stabbed me in the back. What's not going to happen again?
He saw the opportunity and he took it.
I'm seeing what I want in my career. I want belts. I want that glory. I feel like I don't fit in because I haven't been getting the big matches. I feel like I haven't been the Roman and the Seth. I feel like I'm the third wheel here. Now it's my time. This is what I want to do. I don't care who's going to stand in my way. I'm going to take it. And I think what you were saying, Jason, about this being the biggest storyline WWE has ever told, I think it could be the best storyline, maybe not ever told, but maybe of the PG era, definitely. Definitely past the Attitude Era. Possibly the greatest one since maybe like...
I don't think they've ever seen a story that has had this blend of just like real life and like such great like storytelling and complex emotions in at least a massively long time. I can't think of another one off the top of my head.
And speaking of real life, I think you use everything you got. And now that you have Renee Young full-time on commentary, I know that this hasn't been storyline and that's not part of the WWE, and people just know that they're married and doesn't go any farther than that. I don't know. Are they married? They're in a relationship, we'll say. Okay, so in a relationship for a long time. You have to get her involved. You have to.
There's no way that this happens and you don't acknowledge because they acknowledge it on Total Divas.
Right.
So it's not like it's a secret to anybody.
This hasn't come out in the weekly show yet.
Yeah, I think they're still gonna. I mean, listen. I think on WWE television in storyline, I could see Renee Young turning on Dean Ambrose, but I mean, they're not actually
either way.
Break up.
Whatever she does, she's got to be in this story.
Oh, she will be.
Because now, I mean, thank God we got rid of Coach, first of all.
Yeah.
I mean, I could only take so much. I love Coach. He's a great Sports Center anchor, but I was not feeling him on commentary. But yeah, so they are married, and I do think that Renee Young could be an integral part of this story, and she's a star on commentary. She's doing a great job, and I think she could really stir some emotions up from her side of it and what she feels about this and being close to Dean, and he's a psychopath now, so like how does she deal with him? It's awesome.
I would love to have a moment where Dean like just destroyed somebody on TV, like jumped somebody backstage, and Renee storms off the table, walks up to him backstage. What are you doing?
Just gets in his face.
This is not the man I married.
Yeah.
Drops that, and then Dean's just like ready to even attack her, like just has that look of distress, and then just have a big Renee slap.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Because I think that's the best way that you get her involved.
I agree.
If you get her backstage in a segment like that, where you can just have those two on a camera side by side, and she can do something as disrespectful as slapping him, I think that will really, really show where she stands on the issue, too.
Let me put this out there, though. The worst thing that WWE can do, and it's pretty plausible because I've seen it done before, do not put Renee Young with Seth Rollins. Do not do that. That is the worst thing they could do.
It could happen. I mean, think about this whole AJ Styles Samoa Joe thing, right? I mean, it's the whole Wendy thing. I mean, Joe is like all over this stuff. He's like, I'll show you where Daddy's coming home and all this, and who knows? Who knows? I mean, is anything really out of the question here?
No, of course not.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not saying I'd like to see it either. It's absurd, but like, man, she's going to be part of this story, and we'll have to see on commentary how Corey Graves will react, because obviously he's the heel commentator, and that's kind of his role, so you can't really have two heels, or Michael Cole's just going to lose his mind. So, like, what do you do there? And Raw's in real need of a babyface right now. I think Seth Rollins will be that guy, but, like, as far as the rest of the show goes, I mean, I guess we'll have Braun, who will now embrace his role as a face.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because he's got a rivalry with Drew McIntyre, but now he's also facing Lesnar at this Crown Jewel event if it happens for the WWE title, Universal Championship. So what's going to happen there? Because I think the foregone conclusion was like Roman's going to retain it, Brock's going to go away, but now someone's got to win that belt. And there's not like a Money in the Bank you could cash in here, so I don't know what happens. I don't know if we have time because we also have to. Evolution's this Sunday. Talk about taking the air out of the room. They had spent so much weeks promoting this big event, and now this is like the least thing anyone wants to talk about right now.
We love to talk about Evolution. It's just we're giving our fans what everybody wants to know. What is your opinion on this whole thing? And the one thing I will say is that, and this might be a hot take, all right, you guys can grill me for this one. The belt's going on Brock because they don't know what else to do, and then he can go away with the belt, not wrestle, and they can figure it out.
I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, because what's the other option? That you put it on Braun and then Braun. I mean, that's another waste of a loss for Brock. That's two in a row.
Character, right? If the only reason that he got the belt is because Roman had to go away, I don't like that. I think they'll put it back on Brock, and they'll just try to figure it out. And then until they figure it out, maybe a tournament, maybe Brock. Oh, now here Brock has to go back to UFC, so he's relinquishing the belt. Who knows? But I think they put it on Brock temporarily just so they have time to figure out what the hell they're going to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Could go either way.
My brief thing on the title situation before we move on here. I think Brock will win it back. I think, quote-unquote, news will break that Brock is going back to the UFC and Vince is forcing him to relinquish the belt. And then we'll get a tournament because, man, I love a great WWE tournament. I think tournaments should be used way more often. Bring back the King of the Ring.
So you're a fan of this World Cup to determine the best in the world?
I hate the World Cup because that is just...
It's a tournament.
It's 40-year-old dudes who are far past their prime.
It's a tournament.
Wrestling over a fake thing. Like, give me a title tournament. I guess that's what I'm going after. But,
but it's the best in the world.
Yeah, come on. Winner gets to use...
Guys... The best wrestler in the world.
Hey, we know who the best in the world is, and the crowd let him know about that on SmackDown, who the best in the world was.
Yeah, I guess that's a good transition. Did anything happen on SmackDown this week that was really...
I mean, a CM Punk chant happened.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the most notable thing that happened on the show, right? I mean, Orton beat Jeff Hardy in the main event.
Yeah, we feel the same way about this. I mean, brutal. And that spot that he does the Swanton bomb and hits the mat, not even the mat, hits the floor, that's just brutal. I mean, they just abused Jeff Hardy. And I know he's okay with it because this is his life and this is what he agreed to do. And he wants to keep going and keep putting on a show. But, man, every time you cringe. You cringe for Jeff.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go into our second break. When we come back, we're going to give our official predictions for Evolution this weekend. Of course, it is the first all-female pay-per-view. So I missed everything going on. We still got a lot of history coming our way. So you are listening to Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast, and we will be right back.
Now back to Com Radio's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast. I'm Jason Marcus, alongside me, Matt Freiler and Ryan Simpson. And we have a big, historic night this coming Sunday. It is the Evolution pay-per-view, the first ever all-female pay-per-view. And we are going to run down the card and give our official predictions. And the first match that we are going to talk about is the six-man tag team match. Really the throwaway match of any of them. It's the Riot Squad versus the team of Natalya, Sasha Banks, and Bayley. I was talking to Ryan about this a couple days ago. It is absolutely criminal what the WWE has done to Sasha Banks and Bayley. These two women are the participants in what many people are universally acclaimed as the greatest women's match of all time. And on the very first ever all-women's pay-per-view, they are on the definition of a bathroom break match that will be in the middle of the card because they need to transition in between. And it is absolutely criminal. I cannot believe what they have done to these two women. They're the two of the most talented women in the entire WWE. And then the fact that they're in this match is absolutely absurd to me. Matt, I got to go to you on this one. Is there anything that they can do to help these two women out? Or more importantly, what did these two women do wrong to deserve the spot that they're in?
Absolutely nothing, and I think that ever since their feud for the Raw Women's title, they've just been afterthoughts for creative. They just don't want to do anything with these two women. I wanted a Bayley heel turn so bad, and they teased it and they tried, and it just didn't work. And I guess some part of creative thinks they can't do that because of her huggable character and how much she means to little girls and yada, yada, yada. They needed a heel turn for Bayley, and they didn't. And it didn't work out, and now we get this, like you said, bathroom break match. And it's a shame because they are two of the most talented ones, two of the four horsewomen. And this is sick for me.
Ryan, let's go to you first. What's your official prediction for this match? Who gets the win?
It's going to be Sasha Bayley and Natalya.
It better be.
I swear if they don't, I might just turn the show off and not even watch the rest of the night. But, yeah, it's absolutely terrible what these two have gone through. The fact that they had such great NXT runs. We got Sasha up on the main roster, and then we got Bayley coming out at the pay-per-view and getting an enormous pop for her finally debuting on the main roster, and then here we are however much time later, and they're in a 6-woman tag team match on, like you said, Jason, the first all-women's card. It is just so despicable what creative has done for them, but I think they have to be on the winning team here because if they're going to give them anything in the future, you can't lose to the Riot Squad.
Yeah, my official prediction is also that they're going to win this match because there's no other reason why would you give the Riot Squad the win here? Unless you're trying to do another Sasha Banks Bayley reboot feud, but come on, I'm so sick of this. Give them something else at this point. One of them needs to go to SmackDown. Let's just put it that.
Let me ask you guys this real quickly. Why didn't they tell the Sasha Bayley feud as well as they told Charlotte and Becky? Why?
Because they have more confidence in Charlotte and Becky.
Yeah.
They don't think Bayley can draw.
I mean, they told Charlotte and Becky perfectly. To the point where Becky Lynch is doing the best work of her career right now.
Right.
And Charlotte's there, and they do the segment with the Performance Center where she runs in, and you're like, this is so, not Becky. They told that story so well. They're going to have an opportunity now to tell Dean and Seth on the men's side very well.
Yeah.
They totally ruined Sasha and Bayley's story, and you're right, because they thought she couldn't draw.
So that's the first match. What's your official prediction for that match? Who's
yeah, I
going to
mean,
win
it better be Sasha Bayley and Natalya. I mean, Riot Squad got a little hype lately. I mean, they've been in feuds with Ronda and everything, but no, I think it's got to be the faces here.
Up next, we got the Women's Battle Royal filled with both current superstars and alumni of the past, where the winner of the Battle Royal will get a future shot at the Women's Championship. Ryan, who is your pick to win this one?
Looking at the names who are included, I would love to see, somebody random win it. To see this.
So you're going with Alicia Fox?
No, I'm not going that random, and I'm not going a Medusa, which I cannot wait to see her back in the ring. I think that's gonna be awesome.
I have no desire to watch Medusa in the ring.
I can't
I'm sorry.
wait. I just want to see the new school, old school stare down at 1.2.
That's fair.
But I think I'm gonna go Sonya Deville or Peyton Royce.
Okay.
Because they wanna have the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal be that push.
Right.
I think you use this as the same platform. You give somebody who you have no idea that they were going to win it, kind of like Cesaro in the first one, or Baron when he won it being the NXT superstar. I think we give it to one of these people who are just kind of like floating around and see if they can run with it. Because after this pay-per-view, I think Charlotte and Becky goes maybe a month or two more, maybe gets to like Survivor Series and then dies. So we're going to need somebody else to kind of take over. And if it goes well, they can run it till Mania. If it doesn't go well, you cut it off at the Rumble. But I think this is a very unique time where you can give somebody a little push to see if they can be the star that creative hopes they can be.
Matt, what's your official prediction for this Battle Royal?
If it's not Asuka, she's done.
I agree.
I mean, if she doesn't get a win here, what is she? I mean, she wins the Women's Royal Rumble. She's built as this massive superstar who's one day going to take down Ronda Rousey. And now she's in a Battle Royal on Evolution, which is the pay-per-view that you would have figured she would headline. If she doesn't win this, what is she?
Yeah, real quick before I give my prediction, the official competitors confirmed so far is Asuka, Naomi, Carmella, Nia Jax, Ember Moon, Alicia Fox, Dana Brooke, Lana, Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Tamina, Tori Wilson, Michelle McCool, Alundra Blaze, Ivory, Molly Holly, Kelly Kelly, Maria Kanellis, and Zelina Vega.
Maria Kanellis was added?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So my two things. I have someone who I think is going to win and someone who I want to win. I want Asuka to win because she needs it, like Matt's saying. If she doesn't win, she's not going to. Who do I think is going to win based on who they're going to push? Ember Moon. I think Ember Moon's going to win it because I think the WWE and Vince and management are very high on her, so she's my official prediction to win it. And she's young, and I think she's in line for a title shot.
Also, one last thing on the Battle Royal before we get to the next match. Can we talk about, just going off of the Asuka conversation, can we talk about how Carmella's in this match too?
Yeah,
You're the girl who beats Asuka, and now you're just like back in the same match as Asuka.
I mean, we could do a whole show on how mismanaged bookings on SmackDown, but yeah.
All right, moving forward here.
Up next, we got the NXT Women's Championship match. Kairi Sane defends the belt against Shayna Baszler, a rematch from their TakeOver Brooklyn match in which Sane won the title from Baszler. Simpson or Matt? I'll go to you. Who do you think's gonna win?
I think you just build Baszler here, and I think you put the strap on her just because I think down the road sometime there is something that they can do with the 4 horsewomen of UFC where Baszler can be back involved with Ronda Rousey again. And I think it's a good place here to maybe start that and get the belt on Baszler, build her a little bit in NXT, and then eventually bring her up to the main roster where she can team with Ronda and do a little something. Maybe they bring, some members back, whatever they do. But I think there's a title change here.
Simpson, what about you? What's your official prediction for this one?
I would like to see Sane drop the strap too. I think moving forward, having both of the UFC horsewomen with belts would be kind of nice because then if we get a spot at the Women's Royal Rumble, get some stuff going for Mania, it could be a nice little moment. But I think there's going to be a title change here too.
So I think Kairi Sane is going to retain the belt here. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be clean. It could be like a roll-up or something to that effect like she won it. But here's my bold prediction for this match.
Hot take.
Kairi Sane's going to retain this belt. Shayna Baszler is coming to the main roster along with Jasmine Duke and Marina Shafir and Ronda Rousey, and they're going to set up something for Survivor Series in an elimination-style matchup. I think Baszler is over enough and credible enough to make it to the main roster at this point, and I think if you're going to pull a trigger on a 4 horseman program, now's the time to do it, considering where we're going towards in the main roster. So that's my official prediction for that match. Up next, we have the tag team match between Alexa Bliss and Mickie James versus the returning duo of Hall of Famers Trish Stratus and Lita. This one marked extra special because allegedly Alexa Bliss is hurt right now, so not sure what her involvement is for this match, if it's going to happen. Rumors are that if she can't compete, she'll be replaced by Alicia Fox, who is not in the Battle Royal for that reason. So, assuming Alexa Bliss competes, though, Matt, what's your prediction?
This is a tough one because I think like you said, she's pretty banged up. She's got either a concussion or a broken nose or something that she injured on Saturday at a live show. But, wow, this is a tough one. I really don't know. I honestly can't make a prediction for this one. I have no idea what angle that they'll take with this. Maybe Alicia Fox will be in. Maybe that'll change it. Man, this is tough. I'll go with Alexa and Mickie if Alexa wrestles. If not, no.
Ryan, what about you?
Chalk went up for nostalgia here. because I think it's going to be Trish and Lita. I think they're going to play off the fact that Alexa is quote-unquote scared, so she won't wrestle as much. Like, I think she'll start the match up, and, like, they'll start doing, like, all right, we're going to get ready to go, and she'll tag out. And then, like, Mickey will need to tag in, and Alexa's just going to, like, run away.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be Trish and Lita just because nostalgia, first time back. And they'll do it in a cowardly way, so it's not clean, so the overall power of Alexa isn't damaged.
Oh, so I think this one's a no-brainer to me. I think Trish Stratus and Lita get the win here, and I think it's clean, but I think Mickie James eats the fall. I think it's a chick kick to Mickie James, and it's a feel-good moment for the first ever women's pay-per-view, and they give her the win. Alexa Bliss keeps clean because she doesn't eat the fall here, and I think that's why Mickie James is in this match to begin with, honestly. Also, we have the finals of the Mae Young Classic. The semifinals are tonight on the WWE Network, so the winner of those two matches will face off in the final round at Evolution this Sunday. So check that out on the WWE Network if you want to see who will be competing. Also on the main roster, however, though, we have the SmackDown Women's Championship match between the Becky Lynch, the champion, defending against Charlotte in the first ever last women's standing match. Probably the hottest feud in the entire women's division at this point. Matt, who you got?
I got Becky again because she proved me wrong, and I took Charlotte last time. Thought she would get the title back, and she didn't. So I think they continue to push Becky to the moon. She's doing best work of her career right now. I think she's great. That Performance Center promo was awesome, A+ on that. And just to see Charlotte's emotion on SmackDown last night when she was like, Becky, this isn't you. Like, you. There's no line you won't cross. I love it. I mean, this Becky Lynch heel turn is working, and I would love to see her retain here.
Ryan, what about you? What's your official take on this match?
I'm going to agree. I'm going to take Becky here because I need to take the foot out of my mouth for a second and say I apologize for saying that was the wrong call to turn Becky and not Charlotte. I thought it was kind of given that Charlotte was going to be the heel here and Becky was going to be the face, but now I'm eating this up too. This is fantastic.
To be fair, I think it would have worked either way, but it worked out really well, yeah.
I don't think I would be as emotionally invested in this feud if it was the other way too.
That's fair.
Because this is something that's so different from both characters. We're seeing a sympathetic Charlotte asking for her friend to return and be herself again, and we're asking for this feel-good character of Becky Lynch who likes to come out with goggles on her head and steam shooting everywhere to, like, tone it down a little bit. But, yeah, I hope Becky wins it. I think they run with her until possibly after Mania. I don't know, but I think she has definitely put in the work for her to get rewarded with holding this belt for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I officially am going with Becky Lynch to retain the title here. I think this program might continue after this because at some point we got to work to Charlotte Flair or Ronda Rousey. So I don't know if that's a champions versus championship match or Charlotte just doesn't win the title and moves to Raw, and it's for the Raw title at WrestleMania. But lastly, and we got to make this quick before we head off the air, Raw Women's Championship match, Ronda Rousey, the champion, defending against Nikki Bella. I think this is probably the most obvious match on the card and the main event, which is always a good thing, right? So, Matt, who you got?
Yeah, let's make this about as quick as the match will be. 1, 2, 3, Ronda Rousey, squash, no problem. I mean, what else can you ask for here? Do love the promo, though. I have to give it to Ronda. I think that the promo she cut on Raw last week is probably more interesting than this match.
Yep.
And Nikki Bella's character in general. But, yeah, she said something about John Cena's bedroom, which, woo, John Cena, yeah, we got him back. Like, that's awesome. So, I mean, it's cool to have Ronda cut her own promo for once and not be assisted by anyone else. And, yeah, she will win this match, and then maybe Paul Heyman will come over and start managing her. Who knows?
All right, Ryan, what do you got?
I want to see Nikki Bella run at Ronda hip toss her, put her in the armbar, tap her out. Under 30 seconds.
I 100% agree. I think that's the best case scenario is Rousey just absolutely dominates
destroys her. Absolutely destroys her. I think it should be one of those shock moments just like Lesnar Goldberg at Survivor Series a couple years ago. I want to see Ronda take care of business, bell rings, armbar, bell rings. You're left in shock.
Absolutely. I think that's I don't even need to make a prediction because I just completely agree with Ryan. That's exactly what should happen. So, all right, thank you guys so much for listening to Marking Out. We have a lot to talk about, but we will get to it next week as well. So thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.